Professor Fisk, welcome to the What, Why, and How Can I podcast. Honestly, it is an honor to have you on. I appreciate you making time out of your busy schedule. You're a professor, a project manager, I think an owner or part owner of a couple construction companies or something along those lines. Anyways, a busy woman. So thank you for that.
Well, no problem. And, I know that I got the privilege of having you as a past student, so you know a little bit more of my history than most people get to be aware of. But it did all start off with always having to have a secure full-time job. So I was a facility director for the United Auburn Indian community and managing their government side projects. And so while I was doing that, I was going through a divorce, and so I found a need for stability, and I found that in teaching, where I could have benefits and summers off with my boys and just the perfect schedule. So I didn't really get into teaching because it was my desired intention, and especially in the career education field where I have enough challenging of men challenge me on the job site all day long, and then I had to go do it in the classroom and have people who've been in construction for 20, 30 years come in and want to make sure that everybody in the class knew that they knew more than I did. And in my first years of teaching, that was really hard because I felt like I needed to know everything that happened out in the construction industry. And so in our Cosumnes River Community College construction management program, I am the only person who teaches all of the construction management courses. And it's not an easy task in the sense that it really is impossible for me to know everything there is in every facet of the construction industry. So once I realized that it was a facilitation of information and being able to invite the students in to be able to participate and share their experiences and knowledge is where everything really started to turn for me. And I really started enjoying teaching, and it wasn't a confrontational defensiveness happening all of the time.
Okay. So it wasn't like students coming in, let me see what she knows.
So it was, I usually would tease and first find out what industry they came in from construction. Because if I had painters, I could say, paint fumes have pretty much worn you out. So I know that you're just arguing with me to argue, but the real thing was, when somebody's from out in the field and they have so much hands-on experience and knowledge that when they are forced to go back to the beginning and start a foundation from a textbook standpoint, it's very intimidating. It's almost an insecurity that might overwhelm the student. And it's also this, well, that's not how we do it out in the field. And so it's just really what I've learned is that it's a mindset change. I'm in that class facilitating the information. You need to be here because you want to be here and because you're investing in yourself in order to get yourself to the next level. It is not a competition between you and I of how much you know versus how much I know. And as you being a past student, I know you know. I'm the one that gives the grades, so it really doesn't matter because at the end of the day, I get to be the boss. So it's almost an opportunity for them to learn how to be in a position of, I don't want to say weakness, but in a position of acceptance, of knowing and understanding that there is an order of precedence of people where you have to do what a boss says unless you're the boss. So until it's that point, really my job is to teach about construction, but more so how construction works in the lives of people. And the way that I've been given the freedom of being able to be a department head and head of the entire construction management department is that I don't have somebody over my shoulder telling me, oh, you can't teach that in class or you can't do that in class. So I've been able to do some innovative things, even since you've been gone, in order to be able to start driving the program in a direction that I feel better prepares someone for going into employment. I want them to go into construction management, but the realistic thing is that most of my students aren't built for construction management. They have construction experience, but the whole reason they got into construction was because they don't like to read, they don't like homework assignments, they don't like to write, and now they're believing that their construction experience and knowledge gives them the purpose and the authority to be able to tell people what to do. And construction management is so much more than that. It is about management, organization, communication at all levels to all different types of people, cultures, diversities, and then being able to lead a team and have them want to finish work for you and have them want to do that and be documenting all of that process. And so most of my individuals that are coming through the community college system, they're not going to be able to be construction managers. But the thing about construction management above any and all other educational platforms or departments or disciplines is that our skill sets are transferable into anything. You're going to need organization, management, communication skills, leadership skills in absolutely everything you do in life. So if we can teach those skill sets in the classroom, and yes, there is construction management that's also going along with that, so then we can actually allow them to transition into whatever pathway they end up choosing to go. Because like you had said in some other interviews that I've watched, it is about people getting into jobs because the financial stability or the desire to make a high income without realizing that their inherent learned or earned skill sets are not preparing them for that particular path. And that is not easy work for them because they're not naturally built to do that type of work. And so it's really an opportunity for me to be able to change the type of educational platform that the students are receiving at Cosumnes River Community College.
Okay, well that was beautiful of what construction management is, because like you said, and I like that you said that, oftentimes people think because you're a construction manager, all that means is you get to tell people what to do. But that's probably the worst part of construction management, is making somebody do something.
Yeah.
What would you...
That's why leadership is so important, because leadership really is supporting everyone ahead of you and getting them to want to do the work for you. And I know that when you were in class, I hadn't been brave enough to do this, but I've done it now for 3 semesters, and it's been amazing, as I have what's called a love learning section in my classes. Mm-hmm. And so everyone is required to either read a chosen leadership book that I've picked, or in one of the classes, I allow them to choose the leadership book. And so we go through that and really kind of do a deep dive into something that sometimes people feel is a little woo-woo, and you're in construction, so we're all manly man, and we're not going to go into this mindset leadership thing. Yeah. But it's so important. And if you don't have that at the foundational base of where you're going to go, then it's going to stunt your growth, because you're not going to be able to see the opportunities of being able to break through your glass ceiling and really come out on the other end. So the Love Learning series has been an amazing opportunity for my students, along with something that we call the Industry Partner Series. So every Wednesday in our courses, we have industry partners who we basically have as volunteers that are on LinkedIn who support our college program, and they come on for an hour and just talk about what they do in construction. And like you said before, there's accountants, there's appraisers, there's contractors, subcontractors, architects, inspectors, and all of that. But there's marketing, there's data research, there's communication people. And so and branding, there's having all of these different aspects of construction. We even were able to have an architect from France walk us through the different types of of architecture and how they are able to approve their architecture over there, which anyone who's in construction, it's a dream to go to Italy or France to be able to see some of that work. And so we have these industry partner series where it's a volunteer thing for the students. It's extra work for me. But by them listening to the terminology and feeling comfortable with the discussion of construction and being in the industry, it helps their growth so much faster in my classes. And so I love it.
I believe that you love it. And I remember being in your class. I mean, you just had this passion for construction. It didn't matter. Like you said, obviously we like to have fun with different trade partners, but it didn't matter what you were talking about. You were genuinely interested to teach that person something. How in the world were you exposed to construction, period? I mean, like you said, oftentimes we think of construction as such a man's job. And now, of course, we have more women in the construction industry, but I mean, you've been in the construction industry for some time now.
Yeah, so I grew up in it. My dad was an owner operator, and I used to run guineas for him during the summer because you could make $18, $19 an hour as a construction laborer. So it was perfect being able to work all summer and have good money to go off to college because I was on scholarship. So I couldn't work during the school year because we were practicing all the time. Mm-hmm. So I went to Texas A&M University, animal science, and then I went through and got my master's at University of Phoenix for Master of Curriculum and Instruction. And then I did 16 units of my doctorate for organizational management leadership. And then I went through some hard times with my divorce and kind of losing everything. And the goal of finishing a doctorate, there's a part of me that feels I have to because I started, but I am learning not to be a total perfectionist, and I'm seeing the benefits of either $40,000 more of debt or a $5,000 a year raise. So I think that return pretty much talks for itself. But on one of my jobs, I was working as a laborer, and I had actually graduated from Texas A&M and came back so that I could pay off all of my student loans in 1 year, making good labor money, and then go into the job of my dreams, which was working for the American Quarter Horse Association, and where the annual salary was about $35,000 a year, and I owed $40,000 in student loans. Man. So, I mean, it was not an option for me to go to work in agriculture right after I got out of school. And so I went to work, and I was working out in the field as a laborer, much of what I had done every summer. And my dad went into the senior project management office looking for work because my dad was a hustler, and he was like, I can blade all your roads, and I can do this. And he was a master, and he had his Texas A&M jacket on. Well, when he went in, the senior project manager of Hury International was an alumni of Texas A&M University. Wow. And so when he found that he had an A&M graduate working as a laborer out in the field, he drove around for 5 days until he found me. And then he pulled me in and said, for $1 less an hour, you can work in the office. So I was like, oh, yes, because it was miserable out there. It was 400 men and 6 women that were working out there. And so it was very degrading. There was a lot of things that were said and done out on the job site that for 2 years just really kind of worked on me personally. And it was a definite boost for me to be able to go into the office and start working in an intellectual part of the construction industry. And so when I went into the office, he actually had a brain tumor 4 days after that. And so immediately within 2 months, I was a 24-year-old kid basically managing the entire $250 million program, wow, closing it out for the California Department of Corrections. And I had what's DSA, Department of State Architect, inspectors that were on the other side of the trailer who were guiding me, leading me, and helping me figure everything out and do everything in order to close out the project. And when it was done, I thought, no brainer, I'm going to get chosen to go down south to work on the $350 million California State Prison in Corcoran for Fleur Daniel, like the 5th largest construction management firm in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't want me. No, I didn't have enough experience. I had a degree in animal science. There's no possible way that I could be a construction manager. And so the California Department of Corrections director, who was Wanda Nelson at the time, she basically told them to hire me. And within 3 months of going there, I ended up being promoted to an assistant project management position of one of the bid packs. And so that my construction life took off from there.
Wow, that's an awesome story. Almost like a Cinderella story, but that's great.
Well, I was in 8 foot of snow, which means 3 foot of mud when it melts. So it wasn't very Cinderella, and it was a lot of hard work for 2 years. I enjoy the physical aspect work of construction, and I totally understand why, after being on the intellectual side for so long, it's so nice just to be able to do your work, drop it, and go home at the end of the day. You might be tired, but your mind can stop. I mean, for the last 15, 16 years, my mind has not stopped, and it's exhausting. And like you said, I do have other interests. So I have a Class A general engineering contractor's license. So I do custom home builds, and I do private consultation management for construction projects, usually projects that are going into litigation or mitigation. So I perform facilitation for other companies for the negotiation of those and resolution. And then I have my husband's company, which is a demolition company. So I work basically as the operations manager of that, keeping all of everything moving as far as paperwork. And we have a bookkeeper and that type of thing. So I manage all of that. And then I have a print shop that I run social media marketing and graphic design out of. And then I have 2 online businesses that I do on there. So I have a construction management online. And then I have something called Build Your Passion Path, which is really helping people work with me personally and being able to develop an alignment between career and their life path so that they can find a career that's more applicable to their natural inherent skill sets and what they were really born to do in this life. So I stay busy. Yeah.
But there's one thing you don't have that I noticed. The only thing you don't have is excuses, for which I can appreciate and admire, honestly.
Yeah, I mean that you can have excuses, and there was a dark time in my life there for a short period of time where it was very easy to make excuses for things. But really, the way that I was raised is at some point in time, no one's going to take care of it except for you. So you got to pull your bootstraps up, quit feeling sorry for yourself, get rid of a victim mentality. And even if it's just little tiny steps, you have to keep moving forward. And in some things, that is the most amazing, honorable, strong thing that I can be as a woman. But also there's times where I haven't gone through appropriate healing or understanding of how I should have really taken care of something so that it doesn't linger with my mind or my subconscious, because I didn't want to face it. I just wanted to move on. And so sometimes that buries things that come up later. Only it provides you with more strength going through those challenges, that when it does pop up later, you have a better perspective of how to be able to deal with it and work with it. But it's still hard. It's still hard. But I mean, like you guys know in class, you got to love it. You got to be passionate about it. So there's going to be emotion, and emotion goes in 2 directions, super high, super low, if you try to stay even. But I feel like I also compete barrel racing. So I keep my horses in shape and I keep myself in shape. But that competitive edge kind of puts you in a mindset of power and helps you feel accomplished accomplishment and helps you feel the exhilaration when that accomplishment occurs. And it kind of keeps you in a higher state of being able to pull yourself up out of the depths at times when things feel like they're just not going to change, or they're not going in the right direction.
Right.
So I always fall back on my sports, my rodeo, the way my dad raised me to pull myself up and just keep moving forward, keep pushing forward.
I mean,
but I'm getting older, and so I'm trying to cut down because it is exhausting.
I bet. So what I'm hearing is emotional intelligence is very important in construction, and like being emotionally stable, because if you don't have these things, you're probably going to quit really soon into your career. If you do not know how to, first of all, control yourself and then build relationships with others. So for someone listening, and they want to become a project manager in any field or in the construction industry, just because the cool, awesome thing is you have like so many students going through your class, and you can almost see what students need. Every generation is probably a little bit different. And what would you say, in your opinion, students coming into class now, what are they lacking the most of that maybe someone else coming in can work on, and it would help them or benefit them in their career?
So that's a great question, because our younger generations and some of the students that are coming in my class right now, they're missing some really big parts, and everyone is tiptoeing around it, and it's really difficult to be able to prepare them properly for the industry and for life by being thin-skinned and tiptoeing around it. I have a tendency to sometimes be a little bit hard, and that is maybe 1 or 2% of my students just can't stand me and think I'm the worst thing that ever hit the face of the earth. And I'm sad when that happens, because I feel that they're even more in need of a breakthrough. But at the same time, I can't spend time babying them through that process when I have 40 other students that want to be there and want to learn. And that part is very frustrating and sad for me, because I would love to help that one person, because it probably would change their life. But you're absolutely right. Emotional intelligence is huge, but it's that woo-woo thing that's kind of hard to get these construction people to really understand. And that's why I introduce it slowly into my classes, and just trying to get them to understand. So I would never talk to them directly about this, what I'm about ready to say to you. But since we only have 40 minutes, I have to streamline right to the center of it. And that is that we have two brains. Okay, we have an intellectual brain that our brain takes care of things. It takes care of us, and it blocks us from things that are going to hurt us. And typically, any fear that is brought up is an immediate reaction to our brain intelligence that is going to protect us. But we have an emotional intelligence in our heart, and it's actually been proven that we have neurons in our heart that can think, and they can think for us, and they do through intuition. And so a lot of times, just having empathy and gratitude is going to help you be able to get through a communication with people that are out on the job site that is going to be head and shoulders above what anybody else is going to be able to do or take care of. When you tell somebody what to do, when you tell somebody that they must wear a mask, okay, they are going to bow up, and the hair is going to come up on the back of their neck, and their chest is going to puff out, and they're going to tell you to pound sand, right? Is our construction term for it. But if you educate them and you explain to them why it's important to you and how it may be hurting someone that you love or that you care about, and you make it about them being able to do something for you and be a leader in this, you get a completely different reaction. And I think in construction, we're so type A, and we've got so much on our plate. And we don't have time to have those soft conversations. It's like, throw the hard hat down, get that shit done. I need you to get, the schedule is set. It was going to be done on Friday. Get it done on Friday. Bring 10 more guys here to get it done if you can't get it done. Instead of going, hey, you guys said in the schedule that you were going to have this done by Friday. What do we need to do to make it happen? If it's not going to happen, why? And, this is what you guys had committed to. This is what you guys said you could do. We need to do what we can because we have another crew that's coming in behind you. So how together can we work through this? And if you give people that opportunity, they will be able to come up with innovative problem solving together as a team that you can't do on your own. You can't do it. You can think that you can do it, but if you don't have anybody to put the wheels in place and to oil that, it's not going to go anywhere. And so as a construction manager, really understanding communication and teamwork is going to be critical. You can do that by having empathy, understanding, being compassionate, being considerate, being respectful, and moving forward on your job that way.
Oftentimes when a new project starts and the PMs are feeling each other out, one of the first questions are, where'd you go to school? Or where'd you get your degree? Or how long have you been in the construction industry? And then, a couple emails try to bend each other over, see how far they could push one another, which is always fun. It
is for me because I tell them, I graduated from Texas A&M University, the #1 construction management school in the United States.
There you go.
I have a degree in animal science. Yeah.
But you don't have to tell them that part, right?
No, it's not even on my resume.
That's hilarious. Yeah. Okay.
And if they do ask, I tell them it's just because, construction is no different than domestic animals. So I'm basically managing one and the same. So
pretty much. There is another word that I think is very important in construction is integrity. And being honest with one another, because obviously we know construction, this is a business, this is a big money business, and there's margins and profits and all that type of stuff. How do you, if you want to maybe share a story or an example, but how do you keep integrity, but at the same time, hold the line? Hold the line. But you still keep your integrity. Still keep your relationship. Balancing all of that on a project.
So you bring up a really great point because integrity is something that contractors aren't often well known for, and I will say that. My experience is a little bit different because I am usually in projects that I choose to be on, and they're typically private projects. So the type of contractors that you interface in those different scenarios, whether it's public works or it's private work, can often be very different type of contractors. A lot of times as construction workers, we want to do things with a handshake. We don't want to go through the documentation that's necessary. I can't help but do documentation because I worked for the CDC and that's all it was documentation. And I'm so thankful that that's how the beginning of my construction career started, because it is very important, because you often don't know that something's going to be an issue until it's already developed into an issue. And so the important thing about integrity is, for me, making sure that you keep that documentation, but never taking accountability first and foremost. If I do something wrong or say something wrong, I need to apologize or I need to go in and correct it. But most importantly, that when I tell them something, I'm going to stand behind it 110%. When I was early in my construction career, when I was 24, 25, I was a hot shot. I mean, there was multiple companies that wanted me to work for them. And it was because I'm a hard worker, but also I was very good at what I did. But the problem with what I did is it was extremely stressful, and I had a lot of anxiety the entire time I was working because I was on that job site by myself. I was driving every single man down into the ground with my thumb, making sure that if they said that it needed to be done by that day, that's what day it got done. And if they didn't, they got a letter. And, I used the specification section that told them exactly how wrong they were. And I mean, it was brutal. But when I left the job site, it was $600,000 under budget. But
Wow.
the problem was that the contractor put in about an $800,000 change order of multiple change orders. And I went through every single one, and I showed the school district the difference of what really was owed the contractor and what the contractor was exaggerating. And so by the end of it, I mean, I was saving the school district like $400,000, and I was so proud of myself. And they said, "Good job, Cory. We're going to pay the contractor the whole $800,000 that he asked for." And I looked at them like, "What are you talking about? I spent hours. I did all this work." And they said, "It costs more to go through legal and take them to court and fight for that money that you found than to pay them the $800,000."
Wow.
And when I heard that, it completely changed my mindset of how I managed the projects, because it didn't matter how hard I kept them to the dollar, like made sure that I wasn't going over, because as far as I'm concerned, if a contractor puts in a hard cost for a project, that's exactly what it's going to cost. And if they tell me that, well, the architect didn't put this in the drawings, well, you bid it, you knew how to do it, you tell me how you planned on doing it, and I might pay you the difference if what the architect tells you needs to be done is more extravagant, but you had a way of doing it. So as far as I'm concerned, everything is in that project. And I can make it happen. But by working that way, I was so stressed. I was just constantly had contractors yelling at me, coming into my office. They were pissed off the whole time. So when I learned that as long as everyone's making a fair profit and everyone's being fair, then I was able to release some of the responsibility of keeping that budget so tight. And it was an easier working experience. And I started to see that, if we worked at things, and I was also young in my career, so I was always asking questions, but the way I was asking them put the other contractor on defense. Like, I'd be like, "Well, why are you doing that?"
Yeah.
And he'd be like, "Well, what do you mean, why am I doing that? She hasn't approved one of my change orders. I know she's setting me up for something, And so instead, now it's like, wow, I never realized that you needed to do that. How come you're doing it like that? Is there other ways that you can do that? I'm just curious." And so being able to have it more conversational, where then they love talking about how they're doing something or how they're completing it. But I think sometimes that with us being type A personalities and being very overloaded with work, and we have to get done in these certain time frames, we become very direct. We become very disassociated with people's feelings and really caring about, well, I don't really care if I hurt their feelings. The job got done on time, and I probably won't ever see them again.
Right.
I think all of us know how small the construction world is now, and we see people that we were hoping we would never see again that show up on the job site. So it just makes for an easier environment to be able to work with everyone. Everyone gets to make a fair profit. If I say something, I'm going to stand by it. But if you say something, you better stand by it too, because the next time down the road, I'm not going to trust you. And if I don't trust you, then you're not going to get payment, and you're going to get that hard ass at 24 years old that's not going to let you get a penny out of it, because I'm going to work really hard to show you that your word is important and you need to keep it.
That's right. Speaking of how small the world is, I was just actually speaking to another project manager the other day, and he shared a story where a couple years back, he was on the owner side representing the owner, and he was hard on a GC, and she was a project engineer back then, and he was just giving her hell. And then now he is on the contractor side, the subcontractor, and she's still in the GC position, but now as a project manager. And he's like, dude, this is crazy. I have to go work under her. Like, how does that happen? But yeah.
Yeah, no, it's a small world. And that brings up another point in the sense of men and women in the construction industry. It has changed a lot. And I think that when I was younger, it'd be like, hey, honey, can you go make a copy of this for me? And I would be like, sure, I'll go make a copy for it. And now somebody's like, oh my God, sexual harassment, everybody needs training, you need to be careful of this. And then a lot of, just demasculating of men in order for women to be at a higher, to be able to be equal with them. And that's not what we should be doing. If we want to be equal, we need to keep rising to the occasion, and we need men to be able to accept that role playing, because we do have very different skill sets. I mean, men are very boxed. They're very lineal in their thinking, which keeps them very focused and very detailed, where women have a tendency to be more multitask, general oversight, and it works well for organization and management. Now, those are very general observations of the two sexes, but it really displays that we all have something to offer that's unique to the team. And so really has nothing to do with us being different sexes, other than the fact that it's been a totally man-dominated world. And so there are times when they don't think about how they might talk in front of a woman, but at the same time, that woman shouldn't take offense to that. We're walking into their environment, and they're having to learn how to work with us in that environment. It's getting much better, much easier. But I think everybody needs to quit being so sensitive and just worry about themselves and making sure that they present themselves as respectful, honorable, and accountable and responsible. And the other people will take care of themselves. And if everybody did that, everybody A+ accountability and responsibility, then they would all be really great people, and we wouldn't have to worry about anything. But it's not my job to tell you, how to act on a job site. You're representing a company, and that company is depending on your representation for future jobs, future work, quality of work. So I think that people would probably benefit and really be able to perform at their very highest level if they spent more time focused on what they're doing instead of what other people are doing.
Exactly. And sometimes, just to add to that real quick, sometimes people love to add attention to their issues as if the rest of the job site is perfect. They're the only ones with the problems on the job site. But it goes to the point that everyone has the same issue, or not the same, but issues on the job, where we all have to come together, work together to build one thing. How can so someone listening, maybe your students, maybe someone wanting to be a student, before they become a student, maybe they're still in high school, what is the best way they can expose themselves to, one, construction in the field, construction in the office? Do you know of any opportunities where people can shadow or volunteer just to gain more knowledge and experience?
So specifically, I mean, anytime that you can get hands-on experience, it's the most valuable experience that you could possibly have. So if you can shadow someone, whether it's your dad, whether it's your uncle, whether it's somebody that is a close friend or relative, and a lot of these are precedented upon what kind of insurance, just stupid things that get in the way of us being able to learn,
Yeah.
But when we were little, we used to go ride in our dad's truck and sit in the truck for hours until he got done with something. But we were watching him during that time. We used to go into the garage and hand him his tools in order for him to be able to do his work. That's how we spent time together. Often, if you didn't know what tool he needed, it got thrown at you until you did know the next time, exactly what tool that was going to be. With your mom, you're out gardening, you're doing things. We used to have vocational education in high schools. We used to be able to experiment and try things out and determine whether or not we liked it or not before we got into college. Now we're having to use college as the platform to experiment of what it is that we want to do. But then we're seeing these really high expenses that are coming into it. And so now they have these forced pathways that you have to kind of choose what direction you want to go, which again doesn't allow you a foundational base of skill sets that you can then transition into the appropriate pathway. They have some high schools right now that are identifying at the age of 14 what pathway you're going to go into. So whether it's going to be a plumber or a carpenter or a nurse, that is cheating somebody the opportunity to be able to build a foundation. How many jobs, how many different industries have most people been exposed to in their life? Some people have changed careers 2-3 times, some as many as 6 or 8 times.
Wow.
And now we're in a place where we're taking traditional work and we're moving it online in order to be able to deal with something that a pandemic that happened this time that guarantee is going to happen again. And so are we going to be prepared to be able to make those kind of transitions? And so we're not preparing our generations for being able to come up and do that. Instead, everybody thinks, oh, they're great on computers because they play all these video games. They don't know Excel. Okay, it's like the number one software that they shouldn't leave high school until they know how to use Excel. And so they are not great at computers. They're great at watching YouTube videos. They're great at being able to have eye-hand coordination with their Game Boy or whatever it's called now. And so these are the things that we need to understand that we've stolen from our children. So when everybody talks to me about, oh, those damn millennials, I'm like, okay, somebody raised them. Okay, so it's not 100% their fault. But now they're being put into my college classroom, and now I'm supposed to shape them into people that when an employer comes to me, that they're going to come to me time and time again so that I can have other opportunities for other students. So that means that I have to be able to prepare those students in a way that that employer respects what I'm farming out to him or her. And so it's really, really important to get experience doing things. It doesn't have to be construction. It could be working in a print shop, okay, where you have to interface with people and actually listen to what they're saying and describing so that you can get their order down perfectly. It could be being a waiter. It could be a bartender. All of these skill sets are transitional and transformational into a construction management degree. The problem is most of the people who come into construction management don't like to write, they don't like to organize, they don't like to communicate, they don't have enough construction experience to understand the precedence of work and the value of work based on means and methods and how the equipment and manpower are going to be collaboratively put together for the total cost of that project. And so they can't learn that without doing it. You can't sit there and watch somebody dig a trench and go, okay, well, that backhoe took 2 days. Yeah. Okay, well, did they have a laborer on the ground? Were they dealing with existing utilities that they had to be careful how they were digging? Were they in rock? Were they in peat soil? What was going on out there?
Yeah.
So having that hands-on experience is the most important thing. Then the next thing that I would say is mindset. And a lot of times when people talk about mindset, they're like, oh, positive affirmations. I get up in the morning, I'm going to make $1 million this year. I mean, that's not what mindset is. Okay. Mindset is an actual understanding that you have neuroscience data that identifies that what you're thinking subconsciously has an overwhelming force of how your muscle memory and how you work on a daily basis. So when you decide that you want an Audi and you want a silver Audi that's an A5 or an A6, and you go driving out that day, I swear you're going to see at least 5 of them.
That's true.
Okay, you never now you don't want a silver one anymore because everybody's got silver. So you want a burgundy red, and so the next day you see 3 burgundy red Audis.
Yeah.
This is how our subconscious controls what we're doing on a basis. So once you understand that your life is full of learning and that you have to go to school for the rest of your life, whether it's being self-taught or whether you're choosing to invest in yourself with little programs here and there. And this is where I'm going to get into a lot of trouble because I'm a college professor. So it's very important that everybody goes to college. But the reason that you go to college now is so that your brain can continue to exercise while you're growing and maturing into a person who's going to be capable of walking into the employment sector. And that maturity comes with the separation of your parents and being able to exercise your brain during those 2 years while you're learning how to manage your money, you're learning how to budget, you're learning how to manage your time. And in all of that, you're doing this thing called school, which really is just a tool. It's not like a punishment. And so as you're moving forward with this and understanding that your lifetime is full of life learning, and then once you've learned something, you need to then teach it to somebody else and provide mentorship to somebody else, because you're always going to be 4 or 5 steps ahead of somebody else. So that when you do that, the gratitude is going to come from somebody else looking at you and doing the same thing for you. So you have a mentor that's 5 or 6 steps ahead of you, that's showing you, that's allowing you to shadow, that's discussing with you certain choices and decisions that you're making in your life that are going to change the level of which you compete at. And so having mindset is really understanding that you're going to be learning your whole life and you're going to be loving it because you're investing in yourself, you're investing in your growth, and all of that is what's going to help you become as successful as you potentially can be.
This is beautiful.
So
you are like a life / career / make money / stay married coach.
Well, the thing is, and I will say, because I'm not allowed to do this in the college classroom. Mm-hmm. I do as much of it as I can, but the focus and the time frame that we're there has to be spent on textbook knowledge.
Right.
And so that's why I do so many programs outside of the college that I volunteer my time for, because those students that want to rise to the top, the ones who I am going to suggest to employers, they're the ones that are really stepping up and taking advantage of these extra opportunities that I give. Because say, for instance, last semester I had 280 students in 5 courses. It's the most students I've ever had. And my goal was to make it as interactive as I possibly could based on the fact that we're in an online situation, and understanding that I do have people coming into the classroom who don't understand mindset and feel that it is, a positive affirmation thing instead of an actual physical, emotional, mental exercise that you're doing for yourself. Mm-hmm. And so I had 280 students. The most people I had at one of my industry partners was 68 people, the first industry partner, and then the second one had 32. The rest of them, I had about 15 to 18 students, and they were always the same 15 to 18 students. And out of those 15 to 18 students, probably 12 of them had A's in all the classes that they were in.
Wow.
So those are people that are caring about themselves and investing in themselves and really are going to get the most out of everything. And the biggest point for me to really put across is you could sit there and read a text all day long, but if you don't implement what you read and you don't become part of what you read and you don't have a clear mind and you're not tired, you all of these things that add up to whether or not that's going to actually sink in and stick with you.
Yeah.
So when you get to test day, it's not just about memorizing the quizzes, it's actually learning the material to a point that you can talk what makes sense out in the exam. So if you're talking about a question and it says, is this steel beam or is it a header that's for the opening of a window? Well, yeah, the opening of a window is supported, but a beam can be used for a multitude of things, where a header is going to be used for an opening. Mm-hmm. So they're both correct answers, but one is more correct. So it's more correct based on the fact that when you were looking at the diagram and thinking about it through your head of how you would build it, you would put the header at the opening and it'll never leave you again. You'll remember that for the rest of your life.
Testimony right here. So in your class, I learned how to read a beam, like 12 by 1 or whatever. Uh-huh. And so with the W in the front, and I was like, dude, that's crazy. So I go out on the job after school the next day. I'm reading every beam, and to this day, every time I see a beam, I think of that class where I learned how to read a beam. So that's true.
Yeah, and that's so fun because I tell my students all the time, when we used to be able to go into Starbucks and wait in line, it's the perfect place to sit there and do a punch list. Like they have an open ceiling and they just paint everything. So you can stand there in line and do a complete punch list on the entire, Starbucks ceiling. And when you're a construction manager, that is so let me just point out one other really great nugget. Yeah. And that is that self-analysis and self-assessment are the most important thing in the world that you could possibly do in order to be able to excel in your life. Because unless you're honest with yourself and really take a deep look at where you're at, what you're doing, and what you need to do to change in order to make the right choices and decisions that are going to pull you in the right path, then you're not going to be able to do it, because you'll just stay in a forever infinite circle that keeps you swirling down, like just swirling.
Yeah.
And so once you're able to really start identifying where you need to improve and what you need to do that, then you can start growing. But the thing about it is that when we're really working and trying to do things, everything's going by us so fast that we don't stop to say, whoa, why did I talk to that person like that? I probably need to apologize to that person. I wasn't being rude, but I was being very short because I had these other things on my mind. And I need to take the time to be able to do that. Well, then the next time that it comes around, muscle memory, your body will immediately go, hey, wait a second. Don't you remember that when you were short this time, you ended up wasting time by having to go back and apologize? So right now, just start off doing it right, and you won't have to come back and do that, and you'll be able to get to something else. So our minds and bodies are absolutely amazing things. We just need to train them, and we can't train them without being self-aware.
Professor Fisk, I honestly want to say thank you. This has been a very fun interview for me. And I hope hopefully maybe we can have you on again. If you're down for it. I mean, you have a deep well of knowledge that you can just pour out onto this, first, your students. So if you're listening to this and you're looking for classes to take, CRC, Consumnes River College, if you're in the Sacramento area, an awesome professor to have. But then also here, maybe you can come back and share a couple more nuggets with the growing generation that needs assistance in certain areas, like we talked about today. So I honestly very much appreciate your time. I can't say that enough.
Well, I really appreciate it, and it's nice hearing it come from a past student for sure. But yeah, at Consumnes River Community College, we call it the CRC CMT team. We have a Facebook page, and we try to keep opportunities for employment on that page, as well as some tips that we're talking about our industry partners and who's going to be on talking. We also, the difference between the CRC, construction management, and the constructionmanagementonline.com is that I'm able to do more mindset leadership and soft skills training in that realm. And then for the Build Your Passion Path, I really focus more on intimate mentorship and me being able to go through the 3 paths of career entry, career transition, and career retirement. And right now I'm writing a book. It's actually called I've Graduated, Now What?
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to be going over a lot of the same topics and things that you talk about on your podcast. And so I just really appreciate being here. I honor you in your growth in working all day in that dirty construction field, and then coming here and having this dedication to a very important topic, because I feel if people had a clear direction before they started, they would be able to streamline their success so much faster. But one more thing.
Yes.
Is that you had mentioned something to me earlier about the importance and competitiveness of people explaining where their degree is and where their degree is from. My dad did not have a degree. He graduated at 17, and he was the most successful person I knew, and I loved him and looked up to him dearly. I still believe today that we have the ability and opportunity to be successful. A degree certification is important in the sense that employers use it as a measure stick, and it's a tangible measurement for them to use for the credibility of your success and where you're going. In most cases, it's an example that you have dedicated yourself to something for 4 years, completed it, and shown them that you have that kind of
discipline,
dedication, discipline. Often we don't use a lot of what we learned in college. And so that's what's frustrating to a lot of people, because a lot of people don't understand the other skill sets that are sometimes built in doing things that we don't like to do, mm-hmm. just like cleaning our room. Nobody likes it, but it teaches us responsibility, organization, how to listen to authority. Yeah. And so I appreciate a degree because I know how much work it is, but your success absolutely is to the uniqueness of each person, and for you not to measure your success based on what you've accomplished that someone else might have done. You need to focus on yourself and what you've done and how far you've come in your life, and that's what you need to be proud of, and it's only going to keep building. So I'm proud of you and what you've done.
Amen. Thank you. I appreciate that very much. So just for someone listening, all the links to what Professor Fisk was talking about will be under this video in the bio. You guys can access that. A beautiful mentor. I'm sure you guys have heard from this podcast. You can find her. Do you have a YouTube channel? I think I've seen you post some stuff.
It's not a technical YouTube channel yet. It's supposed to be launching in January. We're working on the schedule for everything right now and the topics that we're going to be going through. So
okay, awesome. So when that happens, we'll definitely add that also to the description. And again, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.